Nigeria is a very diverse and beautiful African country with exceptional biodiversity and boasts an abundance of unique fauna and flora. Its people are famous for their smiles and welcoming spirit. It has so many different colorful cultures that are indigenous and quite ancient too. You would simply get lost trying to explore all of them, and it would be quite a fun experience too. Unfortunately, Nigeria also has the black gold curse. Its oil and gas wealth has not translated into substantial wealth like many other countries around the world. So why hasn't Nigeria become the next Saudi Arabia or Qatar? Stay tuned to Around the World to learn more about the country and how oil is still plaguing it with corruption, divisions, and dangerous future economic woes. Nigeria is a vast country on the Gulf of Guinea in the northeasternmost part of the tropical Atlantic Ocean. It offers endless natural landmarks and wildlife reserves. The gorgeous protected wild refuges such as the Cross River National Park and Yankari National Park have waterfalls, dense rainforests, savannas, and rare primate habitats. One of the most recognizable sites is Zuma Rock, a 725-meter tall monolith outside the capital of Abuja that is also pictured on the country's official currency. It experienced a very dark era of slavery and unspeakable human rights abuses as a British colony from 1884 to 1960. Back then, the British snatched it as a result of the Berlin Conference, which divided most of Africa between feuding European powers. Nigeria is also one of the biggest economies in Africa. According to the World Bank, it has great potential to become one of the world's top 10 economies by 2050. The country holds the largest natural gas reserves on the continent and is Africa's largest oil and gas producer. Nigeria has 187 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves, ranking 9th in the world and accounting for about 3% of the world's total natural gas reserves. It also possesses a massive oil reserve of about 37 billion barrels. It has 18 operating pipelines and an average daily production of some 1.8 million barrels. Nigeria is the 11th largest oil producer worldwide. Apart from oil and gas, Nigeria's other natural resources include tin, iron ore, coal, limestone, niobium, lead, zinc, and massive areas of arable land. You might think that Nigeria achieved all its glory as a nation that is predicted to transform from a developing country into an emerging middle-income state in less than 20 years because of oil and gas. In reality, oil and gas turned Nigeria into a hub of corruption, greed, and political strife that caused the nation to lag in terms of economic development and social progress. Since Nigeria gained full independence in 1960, it has been suffering immensely from the black gold curse. This curse led it into a civil war that is still scaring the nation's soul. Its oil wealth is still the main reason that old, elusive, neo-colonial, behind-the-scenes forces are keeping the country divided and poor, because it is the only way they can keep getting away with stealing billions of dollars in profits from the country's lucrative resource. In fact, the story of hidden forces keeping Nigeria divided, conquered, and poor, while its resources and related profits siphoned, goes back to 1914, when interest in the Nigerian oil and other resources started with a rather evil ordinance, making any oil and mineral resources under Nigerian soil legal property of the British Crown. In 1938, the colonial British government granted the state-sponsored company, Shell, then known as Shell Darcy, a monopoly over the exploration of all minerals and petroleum throughout the entire colony. Later in the 1950s, Shell and the British Crown agreed on a 50-50 oil profit-sharing system, while the Nigerians got nothing. Soon, the immense Nigerian resources attracted other greedy West European and American corporations that wanted a share of the free treasure. By the early 1960s, ExxonMobil, Texaco, and Gulf had purchased concessions from Shell BP and began siphoning the riches of Nigeria too. Of course, getting away with such atrocities required that these corporations, along with the British government, keep investing in keeping the Nigerians poor, conquered, divided, under their control, and in the dark, unaware of what is really happening. They even went the extra mile to make sure that Nigeria remains cut off from its old trading partners in West Africa, which was something the British implemented earlier by forcing Nigerian farmers to move away from their traditional crops and instead focus on providing rich countries with cheap cash crops, such as peanuts, cotton, palm oil, and cocoa. From the beginning, divide, conquer, and rule tactics were employed by both colonialist traders and administrators, highlighting ethno-religious differences and playing groups against one another. Ironically, after Nigeria gained independence in 1960, things did not escalate into a full-blown civil war until a massive oil boom began in 1964. The Civil War lasted until 1970, and it was exactly during that time that the structures, policies, and political relations that created Nigeria's unique vision of the oil curse were established. There is even new evidence that reveals that a tax battle waged by U.S. oil companies contributed to the regional and ethnic tensions leading to the outbreak of war. In the pre-war oil boom period in Nigeria, U.S. independent oil companies undertook intensive lobbying and propaganda campaigns to convince Nigerians that newly imposed Libyan-style tax laws would force them out of business. In turn, they argued the regions where they operated, as well as the ethnic groups inhabiting them, would be relegated to perpetual poverty. This campaign thus exacerbated ethnic tensions, falsely heightening the stakes over which the war was to be fought. The oil giants were even paying the Nigerian government to keep oil matters out of the public sphere. As a result, the particular political economy of oil in Nigeria introduced opacity, the deliberate obfuscation of information related to oil production, revenues, accounting, and operations as a governing principle. This historical fiasco is still playing out in the upper echelons of power in Nigeria. The same corruption, greedy policies, shadowy, vague strategies, and bad management tactics are still making Nigeria struggle economically. However, despite the old ghosts that are still haunting it, Nigeria is holding on to its federal system that keeps its multi-ethnic and culturally diverse federation of 36 autonomous states united and under the rule of the Federal Capital Territory. General elections to elect a new president, federal and state legislators, and governors are scheduled for February 2023. The totally un-Islamic terrorist organization of clandestine, well-paid mercenaries, ISIS, that destroyed oil-rich Iraq and Libya in addition to Syria, has also tried and is still trying to contribute to the demise of Nigeria too. Since 2011, the Nigerian security landscape has been shaped by the war against Boko Haram, which is an ISIS affiliate organization. The effect of these godless, lunatic mercenaries has cost Nigeria more than it can afford, both economically and in human misery, especially in the Northeast. The Southeast also continues to witness unrest resulting from separatist agitations. Following the pandemic-induced recession in 2020, Nigeria's economic growth recovered, but macroeconomic stability weakened due to the global commodity market shocks, a depreciating currency, trade restrictions, corruption, and monetization of the deficit. Inflation is still skyrocketing and pushing millions of Nigerians into poverty. Ironically, Nigeria, which has been trying to remove the old neo-colonial benefactors from its oil and gas, among other resources, has magically been unable to profit from rising gas and oil prices that began in 2021. The number of Nigerians living below the poverty line increased from 83 million people in 2018 to nearly 100 million in 2022. There were also 50 million Nigerians that became semi-poor in the past 3 years. As for the number of people living in extreme poverty, the number has increased from 5 to 7 million in the same period. While the Nigerian economy is projected to grow at an average of 3.2% in 2022 to 2024, the growth outlook is subject to downside risk including further, yet to be explained declines in oil and gas production and heightened insecurity. Nevertheless, experts are betting that the resilient people of Nigeria will overcome the induced crisis their country is facing. They cite that Nigeria must focus on inclusion, transparency, accountability, and a long-term sustainable strategy. The question is, will Nigeria defeat the cancerous hidden forces that continue to profit as long as it is poor, divided, struggling, corrupt, and so poorly managed? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share, comment, and hit the bell to get a notification every time we upload another awesome, informative, and educational video that takes you to new places across the globe as we explore issues that shaped and are bound to shape the future of nations and humanity.